The wind scraped at the windows of the lakehouse with a sound like fingernails testing glass, deliberate and searching. Maggie turned away from the panoramic view of cold gray water, arms folded tightly across her chest, eyes nervously following the slow drag of mist as it curled at the shoreline. The house belonged to her late uncle, left to her unexpectedly in his will. The kind of inheritance that demanded no joy. The last time anyone had spoken to Uncle Reed was 7 years prior. He'd vanished into the recesses of this place like dust into corners, choosing solitude over contact. The house had stood empty for 2 winters until she returned now, closing the door behind her with a breath she wasn't sure she'd taken since reading the letter. She told herself it was just a house. Just old walls, old wind, and splintering floorboards. But the moment her boot met the warped first step of the staircase, she felt something distant and waiting just beyond the upstairs hallway. Nights in the lakehouse bore a different weight. Time didn't move steadily there, it slowed, sticking between seconds like sap on bark. Maggie had lit candles out of necessity when the old wiring groaned and shorted, plunging the house into a living gloom that seemed more natural anyway. The rooms upstairs smelled of damp paper and faintly of pine, but beneath that, a sharp coppery tang kept prodding her memory. She dreamed the same thing 3 nights running, standing waist-deep in a fog-choked lake while something vast and unseen circled her just below the surface. When she awoke drenched in sweat at 3:11 each morning, the hands of the old clock in the hall had stopped ticking. Each time, when she crept out of bed to check the rest of the house, she found the cellar door open just a crack, the padlock still looped around the metal hasp but somehow unlatched. Each time, she swore she hadn't touched it. By day, the lake shimmered with deceptive calm, mirroring clouds like a silver mirror held up to the sky, but Maggie noticed that the woods on the far bank had grown denser. Thicker, as if the trees had leaned in closer since her arrival, branches stretching toward the house in slow increments. She tried to shake it by busying herself with tasks, fixing old hinges, airing out heavy curtains stiff with dust. But her focus fractured every time she passed a mirror. Reflections lagged a second behind her movement. Once, as she left the bathroom, she swore her reflection had reached out toward her, fingers pressing against the glass with desperate friction. She didn't check again. Instead, she found solace, however small, in the attic, which felt dormant compared to the whispering unease of the rest of the house. There, a trunk labeled only RE stood beneath the round window overlooking the lake. Inside were faded photographs of Uncle Reed as a child, always in front of the same lake, but in each one, something else caught her eye. The silhouette of an extra figure, tall and indistinct, standing far in the background, always closer to the waterline. On the 5th night, rain struck the roof like thrown nails, and the radio, the one she hadn't turned on, buzzed to life with static and a faint, rhythmic thumping. Her breath caught as she crept close, pressing her ear near. In the white noise, a voice whispered punctuated syllables. "Come, up, see." She slammed the knob off, but the voice lingered in her mind like a residue of thought. She spent the night in the attic under a gray wool blanket, clutching Uncle Reed's photographs. Sleep didn't find her, but something else did. The sound of wet feet padding slowly up the stairs. No voices, no wild knocking, just the quiet, deliberate approach of bare, soaked feet and the long gaps of silence between each step. It stopped on the landing, and by dawn, nothing was there. Except the trail of water leading back down, clear as ink on butcher paper, ending at the open front door. All of it dry by morning. She ventured to town the next day, seeking answers from neighbors who had long since learned not to ask questions. The old man at the post office spoke only once. "Your uncle didn't go mad, miss. He just started listening harder than most." A cryptic smile, then silence. Maggie drove back in the middle of a low fog, headlights catching glimpses of movement in the trees, though she tried not to look for long. That night, she returned to the attic to find the trunk covered in waterlogged leaves, dead, slick things that hadn't been there before. As she backed away, her heel struck something hard. A second trunk, identical in shape but blackened, scarred, and bound with rusted chains. She didn't touch it. She didn't open it, but the padlock had already fallen off, lying split clean in half beside it. As she stared, something inside shifted, just enough to knock against the wood from within. The next morning, the dock behind the lake house was gone. Not broken, not ruined, gone, as if removed without a trace. In its place, a pale wooden boat floated several feet from shore, bobbing gently, empty. Maggie didn't remember seeing a boat before. She stood at the edge of the water, still half in her sleep clothes, throat raw from dreaming. From the attic window above, she could feel someone watching. Not a memory, not the house. A presence. Shadow in form, but not quite shadow. And though she hadn't read the note on the black trunk until now, tucked beneath it, soaked through, she already knew what it said. Something simple and final. You're awake now. It sees you too. Then she heard the wet drag of footsteps behind her, not in the house, not in the woods, but rising slowly from the lake.